Chair, when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, councillors.
Brad, can we get the sound fixed for guys? Come on.
So we're still getting feedback? Yes. Okay. Welcome, councillors and staff. Welcome to the October meeting. We declare the meeting opened. This meeting has been audio recorded and those in attendance should refrain from making any offensive statements. There will be no other recordings of this meeting without the prior authorisation of council. Okay, application for attending meetings by video link, nil. Apologies, nil. Disclosure of interest, nil. Public participation, nil. Okay, councillors, straight into the business paper on page 1, CORP 10.1 financial summary. Mr. Phelps.
Thank you, Chair. So we'll quickly start at page 2, which is more or less the financial information summary, which is indicates that to the quarter ended September, there was a positive variance to budget of $3.8 million, which is up significantly on the August number, which was a positive variance of 1.35 million. So the main effects of that is, as we'll come through the actual information of the overview, will be in capital works, effectively coming through the mix, and a bit of operating expenditure. So quickly run through the different categories of council's profit and loss, effectively, which is revenue and expenses. So the revenue side of things, we're about $220,000 in front of budget at the moment. There's a few areas where that is being made up of. Effectively, the waste management revenue is a little bit higher at the moment, which is quite good, a bit higher in our collection fees coming through, which has been good, and a bit lower in pensioner concessions claimed on annual charges to date. Real estate revenue is up by about 95,000, which is a settlement of the sale of an airport lot. So actually finalised the settlement of that in September, which is quite good. General rates revenue, again, it's mainly the lower pensioner concessions allowed at this point in time. Aerodrome grant revenue, it's up with the monthly progressive claims a little bit higher than expected to date. So that's quite good. And the one that is lower than budget is the water supply. So just usage of the water is being down based on weather conditions and so forth. So, which is good for the farmers, but for our revenue streams, it's a little bit off. Non-operating revenue and expenditure, it's a little bit behind budget by about 63, mainly in the internal fleet hire. Obviously, with the capital works expenditure being down a little bit, our fleet hire is also affected by that coming through, but it's relatively consistent overall coming through for the quarter, because it's really based on about $1.2 to $3 million. So it's not too bad. It won't take much to pick that back up. Operating expenditure, it's in front of or underspent at the moment by about $529,000. There's a couple of movers in this area. One which is higher, which is government place. So we're continuing to have higher costs out there for the staff employment, and getting vacancies filled and rostering issues and so forth due to those vacancy issues coming through.
Mr. Mayor, could I just ask a question regarding that? This 104K, is that just for the month or that's from?
That's for the quarter.
For the quarter.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
for the 3-month period.
And I do know that Matt could probably answer me better than that. The hiring of employees, we don't seem to have a good track record there for a while. Could you fill me in a bit on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. Yeah, we're struggling to recruit staff at this point in time, particularly a registered nurse. So we're using contractors, who are quite expensive.
And Mr. Mayor, further to that, the using of those nurses, registered nurses, like in the hire contract, they would be higher than actually getting someone to work permanently. I'm just wondering whether or not would it be prudent then to try and offer a higher wage to get seeing that that's what we've got to cost to get someone there. Would there be any variation in the wage that could attract somebody and then keep them there rather than have the hire company involved?
Through the chair, we're looking at all those sorts of strategies.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. The next one down there, the waste management, it's lower by about nearly a bit over $250,000. Mainly the timing of receipt of the curbside collection invoices and also the state government levies. So obviously those will catch up rather quick once those invoices do come in. And the final one that's down lower than budget quite significantly is the individual price works orders, which is our works that are requested by transport out along the Golden Highway. We've had very limited requests to date. However, those generally pick up coming through into the next few months. So going into the back end of the financial year when they start trying to get rid of the money. The routine maintenance, however, it's continuing to chug along pretty well on budget coming through the mix. So we're still getting plenty of routine maintenance work. It's just not the individual works orders coming through for rehabilitation works and so forth. Moving into the capital area, as I said earlier, it's lower than budget by about $3.2 million, which is about 40% of the year-to-date budget. So the main areas for this as coming through, so White Park Complex, the electrical supply upgrade is lower than budget by about $280,000. It's just behind schedule at the moment with initial designs, but currently being prepared. So its timing will pretty well be pushed into the beginning of next financial year for the construction type works. Airport development, down by about $764,000, 764,000. And it's mainly just the payment for September. We're just waiting for that to come in. So it's more of a timing issue coming through the mix. Main Road 62 out along Bunnan Road there is lower by about $640,000. The works are continuing on the upgrade of the road and both stage 1 and 3 have been delayed. We've had a few rain delays, obviously, with the inclement weather. And now hopefully those 1 and 3 sections will be completed in November, December in this current financial this year. Also on 62, we've got some shoulder widening happening out there. It's lower by about $124,000. Currently the works are a little bit behind schedule. They've had a bit of reworking problems out there. So the contractors had to come back and do some rework of that shoulder works. Repair work out along Beltrees Hill, it's continuing along. It's a little bit behind budget, but it's continuing and it should catch up pretty quick. The local and regional road heavy patching, it's lower than budget by about $250,000. Works have commenced on that and all those works need to be finalised before we can start the reseal program. So it'll catch up really quick coming through the mix. Ringwood Roads upgrade, a bit lower by about $193,000. Works are continuing. It's started works. It's a little bit behind schedule as well. So as you can see, there's a bit of a theme that we're a little bit behind schedule, bit due to inclement weather. So we're looking at all avenues in regards to the scheduling coming through at the moment. The other couple of ones, they're mainly in regards to a lot of the roads and parks infrastructure. The water and sewer side of things, we've got the integrated water catchment plan is down by about $80,000, which the initial design stage is continuing, but we haven't been invoiced by the consultant at this point in time. So it's more of a timing issue. And our water treatment plant, it's a little bit down at the moment by about $73,000. Just initial designs are continuing with that. And our sewer renewal replacements, it's lower by budget by about $185,000. But we have got a number of tenders going through and we're just looking at the timing of all that work. So a lot of that works is contracted out. So that works will be completed this year. So there's no problem with that catching up in the mix. Overall, so as you can see, it's $3.85 million shortfall there. The budget position at the moment, we have got net variations of 0 on the bottom line for the September month. So we've got in there the votes going through. The bank funds, it's sitting at about $35.7 million, of which we've got 28.5 sitting in term deposits at the moment and bonds. So we've kept a bit of cash in our cash management account, thinking that we're going to have a fair bit of chunky spend over the next couple of months, especially with the airport coming up to finalisation and so forth. Moving then into the capital on page number 6. Yep, sure.
This rework, we're currently behind schedule with rework to apply. What is the rework?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we had some work done by a contractor that was part of the shoulder widening, etc. Unfortunately, that work wasn't to the standard that was required. So unfortunately, we've had to redo the works.
Yeah, so we picked it up before it started. Yeah. Okay.
That's correct. We've got quality assurance in place. So we go out there and we do check the works and supervise them. And as a consequence of that, this has come up.
Okay, right, thank you.
Okay, then moving just on to page 6 again, with the capital works expenditure, as you can see in the second paragraph there, we've spent to date about $4.6 million, which is only about 7% of our overall revised budget at this point in time. So there's a lot of projects that are just currently behind at the moment, and we've been having meetings at a higher level in regards to the actual capital works program at this point in time, which we'll be continuing to have coming through the mix. So unless, Jim, did you want to say anything at that point?
No, probably just to reiterate what Wayne said. You know, we're keeping a very close eye on it. It's not a great position because we are behind on a number of projects, and we'll come back to you and talk to you about those probably in the next month. We're better position than we were last year, but it's going to take a couple of years before we get back to that delivering of 90%. So it's an uphill battle, but we're certainly better than the 40% or what we achieved last year.
Thank you, Mr. GM.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just regarding that, is that because of lack of staff or just what's causing the delays other than the inclement weather? I accept that, but I just wonder whether we need more staff.
It's not necessarily staff on the ground. I think a lot more work should be going out to contract to deliver this in a timely manner, and a lot of our work is down to getting surveys through in a timely manner and getting tenders out, and we're just struggling to get that project management side of it in place, where, as I said, this year we're in a much better position because we had a lot of our design done towards the end of last financial year, so we came into this year with some designs ready to go. That put us in a much better position. We've continued this year to try and get as much design through both our own internal staff, but also putting some out to external. So we're getting design through both channels in parallel. We've now need to convert that into actually getting tenders out probably much earlier than we are at the moment, because we're going to be in the same position as or similar position we were last year with getting tenders out about mid-financial year, so about January or February, before being able to get them on the ground. Now, the election hasn't improved things because we can't bring any major contracts for council decisions in December. So a lot of things that are falling due and tenders that are closing in late November are now going to have to held over through January or February for a council award. So that's thrown a little bit of a spanner in the works from our side of things. But there's probably a number of things. I wouldn't blame it simply on the election.
Thank you.
Just Mr. GM, on that elections, when are they going to make a decision on what we talked about yesterday?
Yes, councillors, there's 2 draft bills, I understand, before Parliament that are being considered. One is for a deferral of the election, and the other one is for consideration of so both are for modifications to the Act. One is to modify the Act to have a further deferral. The other one is a modification. Yeah, so the second one is more around changing it from having fixed polling booths to having 100% postal vote, I understand. But both changes would require a change to the Act, and I think they're being considered now. So we probably won't have an answer on that for a couple of weeks, I'd say. So under the Act, they can only defer once, and that has happened, as you know, from the September date to the December date. Sorry? Sorry, yeah, sorry. So they've used up all their lives in the Act. The Act doesn't allow any further modifications. So the bills before Parliament are to change the Act to allow a further modification if required. It doesn't mean that it will necessarily happen, but they're getting their, I guess, their ducks in a row, so that if they choose to make a further deferral, the Act is already amended in readiness.
I would assume that go the other way. There's too many councillors dropping out, but you wouldn't know. And you're making people having the knowledge, you know.
Yep.
It's not really a choice, is it, if everyone's going to be replacement?
Yep.
Anyway,
Okay.
now with the government.
Yes, very true. So moving down through after the capital works area there, the KPI side of things. Yep. Just with the KPI side of things, at the moment, we're about 36 off track out of 122 indicators to the end of September quarter, which represents about just under 30%. Obviously, the effects of the COVID lockdowns and restrictions have had an effect on it. Taking those into account, which is around the 11 mark, it brings it down to about 20%. So obviously, senior management group is continually looking at these on a monthly basis to go through the process and actually bring those back into alignment for a number of those ones that are off track. So we'll continue to monitor that and come through. But there is the COVID affected ones, which obviously are outside our control coming into the mix.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just ask Wayne, when you go, are you going to go through the KPIs individually later?
We can, yes.
I'll just
we'll go through them as we go through the overall operations reports.
What I was going to point out to the councillors is that some of these are only off track for the month. They're not necessarily off track for the end of year projection. And maybe if and as we go through that, you can just point those ones out if that's.
Yes.
If that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah. If not, we'll
continue going through it. Yeah. We'll come
okay.
back
Thanks.
through. Yes. Okay. That's all good. Moving through the summary pages coming through the mix. Here we've got on pages number 8 through to 11 through to 11 is just a summary of the overall fund and the function area, which are the request votes that we've got going through. So there's not a large amount of request votes, there's just a bit of movement inside, which is noted on pages number 12 and 13. So as you can see, the ones to probably take interest of on pages 12 and 13 are the finalisation of the SUSH transaction. So effectively that was transferred over in July, and we've gone through and effectively come to an agreement in regards to the building. So we've settled that side of things. So effectively we've put some money back into the Children's Services RA there for about $86,000. So the other ones to note on there is also the land development one for $95,000 coming through. And also there's a bit of extra grant funding for the Magic business case, which is the Murrundi Art Gallery Indigenous Centre is doing a business case in regards to that up in Murrundi. And also a bit of the footpath extension that's happening out at Merry Wall. So we're looking at doing probably half it in this year and half it in next year, next financial year. No, that's the actual circuit. That's where we've got the bushfire monies coming through of the 940,000. Okay.
I'll just add to that, the kids at the Academic Hall are very grateful for the air conditioning.
That is lovely. Thank you.
They actually said the same.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Yep. Much appreciated.
Councillors, if we could use our microphones, that would be really helpful because it doesn't go through the audio.
Moving into the business reconciliation area on pages 14 there, that's just as you can see with the worm, it's all like taking a bit of a peak there after the rates were received, and now it's just coming back down with a bit of capital expenditure coming through in normal operations. Schedule of investments on page 15 more or less goes through what our investments are generating at the moment, paltry interest rates. So you've got $35.5 million in dollars in cash management and term deposits and bonds. Moving through then to the net current asset forecast, it's just more or less the movements that have happened during the quarter. Just for your information, from page 17 through to 19. And then we look at the restricted assets, which happens from page 20 through to 25. So pretty well, more or less has the votes that are coming through for the quarter through the restricted assets. And the couple of major ones there, if you look on page 25, there's been about a $4 million change in our restricted assets. The main items for that are effectively with the page 20, you've got additional section 64 contributions that came through in August, which was quite good. Early in July, we had Barrington Forest Road, 70% of the funding for it came through, which was quite good. So that was another one on page 21, which is just under 3 mil. And also we got the bridge replacement money for the second stages of those bridges. So the last 5 bridges that we've got on in that cycle, we've got 30% of the money up front effectively coming through for that. So they're the main movers in regards to that $4 million change. Then we move into the KPIs, the red KPIs that have come through, and also the amber KPIs. So as you can see coming through here, and I suppose if we can probably go through them very quickly to highlight the ones that we think that will come back on track coming through the mix. So obviously, as we can go through them, the media releases will be back on track by the end of the year. So it's improved on previous month. Our council policies, we're very diligently looking at all our policies to bring that back on track. So we're definitely going to hit the 90% mark by the end of the year, I would hope. So that's the second one that will come back on track by the end of the year. The IT steering committee, obviously we didn't meet in September. However, we've got a meeting, I think, planned for October.
There's 2 meetings this quarter, so by December it'll be back up on track.
So it'll catch up. So it's just a meeting thing. The revenue services side of things, we'll probably go back into debt collection probably after December. So hopefully we'll be able to bring that back down to the recommended target.
Mr. Chair, just a question regarding that. There was a campaign out in I think the Western area, maybe over here too, regarding the fact of non-payment of rates. Was that successful, or was it just as the usual? Has the number increased? That's what I'm saying.
Not overly. We haven't really noticed a massive increase in debt overall. I think with the COVID experience over the last 18 months, there has been an increase in indebtedness. Obviously with different people not being able to pay their rates, but it hasn't jumped massively. That's totally separate.
Not paying. Right,
yeah, totally separate to that.
Okay.
I'd probably have to take it on notice to actually give you identify our variable.
Could that be provided?
Yep.
Please? Thank you.
We could come back with a holistic number
in
regards to it, if you like.
Thank you.
That's fine. Moving into the page 27 there, stores income, it'll effectively come back onto track by the end of the year. So obviously we're holding stock levels rather high at the moment with a lot of gravel that we've got sitting in store. So we need to get that out. So coming through. Reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, we'll probably have to look at that as we're going through. Full-time equivalent for family daycare is a COVID affected item, so it may struggle to come back on target. Our community service social protection area there, it's behind at the moment by about 4 meetings. So we'll definitely, with staff coming back on board, we'll catch that number back up. So as you can see, we've only probably had about 2 out of the first 8 that we think will come back on target by the end of the year. Caravan parks and will struggle to come back on target by the end of the year. Maybe with a bit of influx of people wanting to get out and do travelling may help the situation, but we're rather far behind at this point in time, so it's going to struggle over the next 6 months. Sale yards side of things, we've seen improvement in our cattle numbers, but whether we'll hit the target by year end is dubious. The tourism side of things, again, with the visitor information centres with COVID, they've been affected rather significantly. So we've got 3 measures there that are in red at the moment. and they're probably unlikely to come back by year end. Stormwater management, number of complaints. We'll continue to watch that complaints coming through. Effectively, the target is 24 complaints by the year end, of which we've done a third so far. So overall, we'll look at trying to improve that and make sure that we clean out our storm drainage so that we don't get the complaints coming through. Health inspections, again, and also the on-site sewer management. These again are affected by the COVID pandemic. So we will try and endeavour to bring those back on target by year end though, because effectively they're inspections. So we'll be able to get the people out to do the inspections as soon as everything opens back up in December. Public cemeteries, we will hit the mark for the spend in regards to capital works. So we'll go through and make sure that that's come through. The median days for building control, again, we should be able to bring that back down in line with budget by year end. Animal control, again, we'll look at trying to hit that target by year end. So that will be another item that will turn green. Our percentage of customer complaints and inquiries for not responding, I think that measure is incorrect, because I think the 23 has gone in there as the complaints. So really we did hit the mark. It should be a green item straight up. So
just on that matter, does that, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, does that particular KPI go to when enforcement officers are sent out to houses and stuff because someone's got animals in their backyard?
Through the chair, I think that's a separate measure under animal control. This is for other sort of local government enforcement issues that crop up from time to time.
Okay.
Moving down into our community centres and halls, again, a COVID affected item. It would probably struggle to get back to line ball, back into a satisfactory condition by the end of the year. Again, another public COVID affected item is the public libraries. So obviously we've got 2 red indicators there for our public libraries. So we'll probably have to monitor that coming through. It's difficult once we shut the facilities down. Sewerage, with regards to the actual works, that capital works and the annual renewal percentages, with the contracts that we've put out, the tenders that we've put out at the moment for our relining as well as our renewal works and extensions, that will come back into alignment by the end of the year. Bridges, with the works in regards to our bridges coming through, that will hopefully hit the mark by the end of the year. We've got a few items that may have to be backed out coming through the mix as we're looking at our capital works program. So that's one that will be on a sort of like a very close to hitting the target, but it may be a little bit under. The footpaths and cycleways, we've had 4 complaints at the moment, and our target is relatively low there. It should be, I think it's 10. So we haven't got off to a good start for the first quarter. So it might be a little bit of a struggle. So we'll have to go out and do our inspections of our footpaths and actually do the maintenance works coming through for any unsafe conditions that come through. When we
that probably is more people are using the footpaths, and that's probably why why you're getting more complaints.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor. Moving through the local roads area, we've got a couple there that are more or less looking at our priorities with the completion of capital works. So with our program struggling, that may struggle by the end of the year. And length of unsealed pavement inspected, obviously that will hit the mark by year end. We'll make sure that the inspections are done coming through the next 9 months. Regional roads, here we've got a little bit underspent at the moment, but hopefully that will pick up. But again, our capital works program is struggling at the moment, so it may struggle to hit the target by year end. Transport auxiliaries, again, we've got the main CBD included in that transport auxiliaries area, and whether or not we'll be able to spend by year end the amount of money that's in the budget, that may be a struggle to achieve. Yes. On page 34, you've got the transport auxiliaries and maintenance and identification of traffic signs. We will make sure that that hits the mark by year end. Water supply, again, with regards to contracted works, we will have that contracted works out in a tender and effectively be undertaking a lot of the mains renewal works coming through. So we should hopefully hit that coming into the mix. Our complaints for our poor water quality, hopefully we will make the mark by year end, but again, it's one of those ones that will have to be guided by the health services in regards to it. So it might be dubious by the year end. Our annual renewal of our depreciation for water supply, it effectively will come back on track with a lot of that work's being contracted out. So hopefully that'll come back into alignment. So as you can see, we're probably out of those amount of 36, we've got about 11 in COVID pain at the moment, but we've also got probably about another 15 that will come back on track. So hopefully we'll push that mark back into the 90% mark by year end. Okay.
Sorry, just on that, what's the plan for the COVID pain? Because COVID's not going anywhere. So what's the plan?
Effectively, the COVID pain is mainly due to the restrictions and the lockdowns. So hopefully by 1 December, you would hope that those restrictions and lockdowns may subside. So that's where a lot of the people are moving throughout the industry and also going to facilities.
Have we got a contingency plan for when we go to lockdowns again?
In regard to just meeting KPIs?
Yeah.
Are you talking about? Look, most of, as Mr. Phelps pointed out, a lot of the KPIs are around utilisation rates of community halls, libraries, and then there's some financial KPIs around actual income through camping and caravan parks and the like. Our expectation is with the relaxation of rules that we'll start to see utilisation rates and the commercial ventures that we've got running that have been impacted start to increase. I guess our contingency plan is that we have strategies now for fast lockdown if we need to. We know how to do it. We've been through it. We know the process. We can get our facilities closed down. However, the expectation, I guess, is that with vaccination rates and the opening, that's going to be less likely than it was in the last 12 months. Certainly, I know we've been in and out a couple of times in the last 12 months as we've seen flare-ups, but with the expectation of vaccination rates continuing to rise, our assumption is that we will probably have, back to full utilisation fairly soon.
Yeah, okay. Lovely.
Okay. Thank you. So moving just then quickly down, the amber ones are very, very close to hitting the mark. So obviously we expect those to come back into alignment by year end. So they're on pages 35 to 36. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. So councillors, back to page 1. There's 5 dot points of the recommendation. I'd like to move Councillor Fisher, second Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 37, the operational report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So any questions, please just stop me as I ramble on. Okay. So effectively, we've got the first one up on page 39. So here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit off budget at the moment, mainly due to a bit of a timing in regards to the funding of the road safety officer, and that funding approval has only just come through probably in the last couple of weeks. So we should be receiving those funds over the next month. So apart from that, everything else is pretty well on track. Moving into communications, here we've got a small vote and surrender coming through, just offsetting each other, just to acquire a design-specific computer for our design technician that we've got. So effectively, we've moved it down from our admin costs, which is where our underspend at the moment is in regards to the communications area. So it's in front of budget, and we've had a vacancy in that position, which is now being filled from a media perspective. So that should be fine coming into the mix. Communications KPIs on pages 41 to 42. Here we've got one green and one red one. So the red one is the one we're going to improve and hit by the end of the financial year, which is in regards to the media releases. Corporate services, here we've got no votes or surrenders on page 43. Little bit overspending in general expenses at the moment. We just had a few contractor costs coming through, just with consultants looking at a couple of things for us. So apart from that, nothing else to highlight. And we've got a red KPI, which is our effectively the council policies. And as I said earlier, we will be pushing to make sure that they hit the target by year end coming through. Page 45 on customer service, no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit in front of budget here at the moment. We've had a bit of extra revenue come through from our training reimbursements we received from Service New South Wales. However, we've had a bit extra cost in regards to the admin area there, which with casual wages. So as we've put a staff member through the training over with Service New South Wales, we've had additional costs just to cover that position coming through. So overall, we're pretty well in front of budget.
Mr. Chair, that council has to pay for those training, or is it actually Service New South Wales?
Service New South Wales reimburse us for the cost of our actual labour, as well as the cost of staying over there.
Thank you.
Moving into our KPIs for customer service, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight on 46. 47 with depot operations, 47 and 48. No votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit in front of budget there, just mainly a bit of timing with our maintenance and so forth for the radio and trade waste. But apart from that, nothing to highlight. Financial services on pages 49 through to 50. No votes or surrenders coming through here. Pretty well nearly spot on target with our budget in the mix there. Little bit high, underspending our general costs there, but we've got a little bit extra in salaries and wages in regards to admin and payroll at this point in time. But they should catch up with as people take leave. Moving into our KPIs on 51, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Page 52 and 53, we've got fleet management. There's no votes or surrenders coming through at this point. And as you can see, we're a little bit behind or overspent at the moment in our budget. Here we've got our fleet hire, as I said earlier in the summary, it's behind by about 60 odd thousand. And our plant expenses are a little bit higher by about 42,000. It's mainly just mainly timing. We've had a couple of heavy kit that had to go to specialised contractors. So it's sort of like a very lumpy expenditure coming through, but it generally catches itself up during the year. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight there. Pages 54 through to 55, our KPIs are 2 green indicators, so there's nothing to highlight there. General management on page 56, no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit overspent at this point in time, just in the admin area there with our salaries and internal fleet hire charges. Generally, it picks up as leave is taken by the relevant staff members. So there's nothing really much to highlight there. Page 57, a green indicator there. So there's nothing to highlight there. Governance and risk on page 58, no votes or surrenders coming through at this point in time. A little bit overspent at this point of the year, mainly in regards to our insurance premiums. Obviously with the insurance world, that they pushed our premiums up rather steeply, obviously with a lot of claims that they've had over the course of the last 3 to 4 years. So we've got a bit of an offsetter where salaries are down in regards to the governance officer. So we'll probably have a few savings in there, which will net itself off overall. So that's the plan in regards to that area. Moving into our KPIs on page 59, we've got a green indicator there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Human resources, here we've just got a little vote and surrender going through for 20 grand. Overall, year to date, pretty well smack on budget. We've been a little bit overspending in our wages area for our work health and safety. And that's mainly because we've had resources in there to do with COVID restrictions and lockdowns and signage and so forth. A lot of those costs though will be redistributed across the other departments. So we're going to look at doing that coming through the mix, but it's cost us a little bit of extra money in time and manpower. The other couple of items there, the trainee costs and the admin area there, with the trainee, we've sort of like just postponed replacing the trainee at this point because we put a HR officer on. So just a change in the structure in the HR department at this point in time. But we'll look at putting a trainee on probably over the course of the next year, coming through the mix.
Just a question on that. Why does HR, why is the 20,000 being redistributed across the other departments? It's HR's job to keep everyone safe.
Because a lot of the signage that's been put up relates to across the Shire itself. So they've taken out a lot of the signage to the sporting grounds, to community halls, to all our facilities that effectively is a cost to those facilities. So otherwise they'd have to go out there and do it themselves within that area. Do you understand what I mean?
I know what you mean. I just don't agree with it. It's WH&S is under HR. HR pays for it.
More than happy to leave it there, Councillor. That's fine. We'll probably put a contribution against it though in there for the accounting side of things.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if that's what you got to do, but it sounds like that they didn't budget enough or didn't ask for enough. So that needs to be taken into account and go, right, well, they need another 20 grand for this.
Yep. Totally agree. So we'll look at that going through and we'll make the appropriate votes coming through and bring them back to the committee probably in the next meeting. Okay. Moving into our KPI side of things on page 61, here we've got a green indicator coming through. So there's nothing to highlight there. Information services on page 62, no votes or surrenders. Here we're a little bit underspent at the moment by about 100,000, mainly a timing issue in regards to our software maintenance support. So obviously the timing of that will be corrected and it'll bring that back into alignment. Moving into the KPI side of things on page 63 to 64, we've got a green indicator for the first one and the second one, as we indicated earlier, with the committee meetings, they'll come back on track by the end of December when we have a couple of meetings in this quarter coming. Infrastructure support, no, I've got a small vote coming through there, just got a few more implementation of our key system. So we've got a bit of extra cost coming into there. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit in front of underspend in our budget, just mainly with our admin costs there is a little bit underspent at this point in time. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. Moving into our revenue services on page 66, no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit over budget here at the moment, mainly in regards to the user fees and charges. Obviously, with the limited recovery actions, we haven't been able to, with COVID being in place, it's been affected by our recoveries. So we'll look at going through the process of seeing where that will fall out by the end of the year and make the appropriate votes accordingly. Moving into our revenue services KPIs on 67 through to 69. Here we've got two green indicators coming through, but also the red indicator in regards to the accounts receivable, which is the COVID affected one with debt recovery. So that's on page 69. So hopefully that will improve by year end. Moving into page 670, moving on to page 70, sorry. Stores and purchasing, no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit overspent at this point in time. We're just putting into place a new procurement platform at the moment. So over the course of the next few months, that procurement platform will come on tap and effectively save us some money overall in regards to procurement of goods and services, and making it easy for the guys out in the field to actually get value for money quotes coming into council. So it's something to look forward to into the future. Moving on to our KPIs on page 71. Again, this is the one where I've indicated that our gravel stockpiles are a little bit high. So we're sitting at about 910 out of 820. So obviously that will come down over the course of the next few months as we go through.
Mr. Chair, and where did the gravel come from?
We more or less buy it in through our suppliers, through the different willow tree
Yeah,
gravels. And
yeah,
so
willow
forth.
tree gravel, you got some from Ulan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they all go into stockpiles.
Yeah, I have no problem about gravel being stockpiled, I assure you. I can use it very quickly. However, I'm just wondering the comparison of costs. That's all, because they are both a good source of gravel and it's good quality gravel. So that was my reason for asking.
No problem. Moving into sustainability on page 72. No votes or surrenders coming through, and it's nearly spot on budget, so nothing to highlight there. Our KPIs on 73, we've got a green indicator to start off with and a red indicator for the reduction in our council's greenhouse gas emissions. So we're just waiting to enable a few projects there. So, so the LED lighting is definitely coming on board in Marundi over the course of the next month or so. Moving into community services on page 74, no votes or surrenders coming through. Here we're a little bit underspent just in regards to admin costs, which is just their staff leave and lower internal fleet hires and training at this point. So apart from that, nothing else to highlight. KPI side of things.
Sorry, just a question in relation to the Kelly Street house. Where's the costings for that?
We've got that in emergency housing, councillor.
Oh,
coming through.
Right,
Yeah, so it'll come
it's not
come
yet done
through
in community
shortly.
services.
Yep,
Fine,
yep.
thank you.
Moving down into our KPIs, two green indicators on 75 and 76, so nothing to highlight there. Government Place Hostel, no votes or surrenders going through at this point in time. As mentioned earlier, we're a little bit overspent at the moment by about 104K, which is mainly in regards to a lot of our employment side of things, as we discussed earlier. KPI side of things, we've got two green indicators and one amber indicator, and the amber indicator is we just had one room vacant for a period of time. So hopefully that'll be filled shortly. Independent living units on pages 82 to 83, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit overspent at this point in time. So obviously the Marundi units are continuing along and they're all but complete. So we're into practical completion at this point in time. So, so hopefully they'll be operational by November. So overall, apart from that, a little bit overspend there, nothing else to highlight. KPI side of things, a green indicator there on page 84, so nothing to highlight there. Moving into children's services with the SUSH, before and after school care. Here we'll see the multitude of votes, and that's effectively to bring all that budget back into alignment and put the funds back into the children's services RA. So as you can see, we've gone through that process. Early Learning Centre on pages 87 through to 88. Here there's no votes or surrenders coming through at the moment. Overall, we're pretty well tracking quite well on budget coming through the mix. Our actual attendance at the facility has been relatively down because of COVID and so forth. But those numbers are picking up. And also we've had issues with our early childhood teachers at the moment because we haven't had trouble to employ them, but we've got a rectification to that by the department allowing us to have effectively someone who is training to be an ECT as a dedicated body over there. So our licensing will increase back up to the recommended levels of the 53. So at the moment we're stuck on 39, but with that extra additional ECT, our numbers will increase, and obviously with demand, we should see that facility start turning around, which would be quite good. Moving into our KPIs, Here we've got our KPIs on page 89, and as you can see there, it's an amber indicator. And again, that's because of the cap on the 39 students allowed over there. Family daycare on page 90. Here we've just got a small vote going through. We received a little bit extra in our sustainability funding for family daycare, which is quite good. So as you can see, year to date, we're over by about or better off the budget by about $6,000, of which 5 of that relates to that grant funding. So we've got a bit of extra money come in, and that'll just go into the RA for family daycare for its operations. Overall, with its KPI, this is one that has a bit of a COVID effect, just with the full-time equivalent children at the educators. So at the moment, we're sitting at 36. Hopefully that will improve as the climate changes coming through, but whether it gets back up to the 50, I'm not quite sure whether it'll get to that mark. Social protection on pages 92 to 93, no votes or surrenders coming through. Overall, we're nearly spot on budget, so nothing to highlight there. KPI side of things on 94 to 96, 1 red indicator and 2 green ones. And the red indicator is one of the social protection meetings where council is present. Obviously, that will pick up over the course of the year and bring that back into a satisfactory condition. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight coming into the mix. Youth services sitting on 97 and 98. Here we've just got a small vote coming back into the mix, just with the CASP project. So they brought forward a bit of their CASP project. So that it was one that was deferred actually from the 2019-20 year. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, the 2021 year. So the project was undertaken early in this financial year. So we just brought that back in from an RA. Overall, we're a little bit in front of budget at the moment, which has been a little bit of extra grant funding that we received from school holiday activities. So that's been well received by the youth services area. Moving into the KPI side of things on 99 through to 102. Here we've got 1 amber indicator and 3 green indicators. So youth services pretty well kept up a good utilisation at those facilities, even though they went into lockdown for a period of time. So it should pick up relatively quick after all the lockdowns and restrictions are removed. So that's quite a good effort by the youth services department. Moving into our economic affairs area, which is the camping and caravan parks. No votes or surrenders coming through. As you can see, we're a little bit a fair chunk behind budget here at the moment, and effectively it's been affected by COVID. So our camping grounds revenue and caravan park revenue is significantly down for the quarter. Also, we've had a bit of work being done on the RV park down at the sports ground complex. So we'll just be looking at the final cost for that before we bring through a vote in regards to that project.
Just on that project, when are we going to have it open?
Director of Corporate.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, the survey plan has been received. We just need that gazetted, and that's with the lawyers.
Thank you. Moving into the KPI side of things on pages 104 to 105. As you can see, 2 red indicators there, and that's highlighted earlier. Whether we don't think that will be achieved, a hidden target by year end. Moving into Community Connect services on page 106, no votes or surrenders coming through. And here we're pretty well tracking on budget, a little bit overspent at this point in time, just mainly with the operations, but hopefully those will come back into alignment by year end. Community economic promotion on 107 to 108. Now, I've got the vote coming through here for the grant funding and the actual cost in regards to the business case study for the Magic facility, which is the Murrundi Arts Gallery and Indigenous Centre at Murrundi. So we've got that pretty well tracking along okay. Overall, apart from that, nothing else to highlight in there. Just a bit of extra funding received from Austrade, but apart from that, we're pretty well tracking quite well. Moving into our KPI side of things, here we've got 2 green indicators coming through. So we've hit the mark in regards to our grant funding requirements or our grant funding target for the quarter. Private works on page 111, no votes or surrenders coming through here. As you can see, year to date, we're a little bit overspent at this point, mainly a bit of a timing in regards to the projects that are actually in progress. So we've got a number of requests that we're doing at this point in time. So the costs have come through for it, and we'll be invoicing those over the course of the next couple of weeks. So that's just our private works. It's like it just goes up and down. But apart from that, nothing else to highlight in there. Green indicator in regards to the private works profit margin, so that on 112, so nothing to highlight there. Real estate on pages 113 to 114. Here we've just got that vote going back down into the RA, as mentioned in the summary pages, the land development sale of the lot out at the airport, and also we've got a $5,000 exclusivity agreement fee, just to look at a land and business development opportunity. So overall, year to date on page 114, about 90,000 in front of budget, which is effectively that land development sale coming through. Overall, with the KPI side of things on 115 through to 117, we've got 6 green indicators there, so nothing else to highlight there. Sale yards on pages 118 through to 119, no votes or surrenders coming through here. As you can see, we're a little bit over budget here at the moment, and our user fees, as mentioned earlier with the KPI, our level of our sales throughput isn't hitting target. So effectively that has the effect on our revenue streams. So there has been improvement in our cattle numbers going through, but it's a difficult one, which is guarded by the weather and so forth coming in.
Mr. Chairman, just on the user fees, that matter has been resolved or accepted.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on what that matter was?
There was discussion, I think, regarding the user fees, etc., at one of the meetings. In fact, I think I chaired it when the mayor wasn't able to be there, and there was some concern, shall we say, regarding that. But my understanding was that those fees were maybe it was a timing, the fact that they did not get out to the agents early enough, but they were agreed to. Now, was that in the earlier stage? Was it, in other words, was the matter resolved? In other words, did they agree that this is what they had decided earlier and that they then would accept them?
Yes, Councillor, the matter was resolved.
Yeah,
yes.
through you, Mr. Chair, that was resolved. They actually put in a submission to the Depop,
Yeah.
and we took on board their submission, and that's all been resolved.
Okay, thank you.
Just in relation to the cattle, this is 4 months, there's been no increase. As you said, the cattle numbers are rising, and they're rising significantly enough to get to our target to finally not be in a negative.
The actual cattle numbers, I think, will struggle to hit target by year end, just depending on the climate of where we're sitting. So we'll have to address that coming into the mix. So we'll have a better idea probably by at least the December quarter, if not into March. But
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, the target's 35,000. We might not quite get there. It might be low 30s or something like that.
But aren't we still taking from our reserves to prop up the sale yards?
Yes, correct. Yeah, it's not. There's no impact on general funds going through reserves.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
But each month we're accessing the reserves. So if we're not topping up the reserves, we're going to have an issue in the long run, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, okay, righto. Thank you.
It is a medium to long term plan. Once we hit the 50,000, we'll be at break even.
Mhm.
And I think we're looking to go back into the black in about 5 years, I believe.
approximately
About 5 years, and then
time.
repaying the reserves, just like we did with the land
I understand
development
that, but because our cattle have not increased, we've got to be going in a negative level, not in a positive.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? Yeah.
For this current year, yes, that's correct.
Yes, yeah.
Mr Mayor,
Just to clarify that, that's all coming out of the sale yards reserve. Yeah. And just on the sale yards, I mean, there's two things. Yes, it is running at a loss. We had no say in that. There's a lot of businesses and a lot of businesses throughout the world have no say in it. I'm quite confident we'll come out at the end of this. But as far as the economy goes in the upper Hunter, that sale yards, the prices are absolutely hot, hot, hot. If you go and see any business throughout our shire, that's why they're out of trouble, because that cattle market is so hot.
Mr Mayor, if I might just comment also, a lot of the processors are sourcing it's a numbers thing, sourcing their cattle out of Queensland, and they are not the same quality cattle that they would require, but it meets a market expectation, and they're killing them and bringing them in because there's just not the numbers around. And that is why I suggest the reason why that the numbers are not increasing as we would like through our sale yards. The numbers are just not there.
But medium to long term, the actual facility will turn back into positive. Yep. So moving into our KPI side of things, got two green indicators, and the red indicator is, as we were talking about, the cattle numbers. Scone Golf Course on page 123, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit over budget at this point in time. We've got some invoicing to come through for our golf comp fees for August and September, so that should bring that back into alignment overall. So that's pretty good. Moving into our tourism and area promotion on 124 and 125, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit overspent at this point in time, been affected by COVID in regards to our restrictions and opening the facility and getting revenue in through the VICs. So that's been affected coming through. And while they've been sharp, we've had a bit more building maintenance and so forth undertaken. So apart from that, nothing else to highlight. KPI side of things, as mentioned earlier, our KPIs are all red. So there's 3 red indicators there. So due to COVID. Noxious plants and vermin control on 129. No votes or surrenders coming through here, and it's pretty well our annual fee that we pay to the Upper Hunter Weeds Authority. So nothing to highlight there. Stormwater management on page 130. No votes or surrenders coming through. And effectively, we're a little bit in front of budget here, just a little bit underspent in our storm water drainage maintenance. So obviously we'll spend that and improve our drainage system to reduce our complaints, to bring that back into alignment, which is effectively our red indicator on page 133. So we'll be spending that to do our maintenance. Moving into street cleaning on page 134. No votes or surrenders here, and nearly spot on budget, so nothing to highlight there. And we're pretty well keeping up with our kilometres of street sweeping being undertaken, so nothing to highlight there. Waste management on page 136 to 138. Here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through. We've got effectively as mentioned in our highlighted in our overall summary. Year to date, we're in front by about $430,000, of which is taken up by about $100,000 in revenue and about $280,000 in expenditure. So with our revenue, it's more or less to do with higher landfill charges being received through the facilities, which is quite good. Our pensioner concessions has been lower than that's been expected to be applied for. But then we have our timing issues in regards to our MGB waste collection on page 137 and our state government levy. So if you put those two together, that's $250,000.
Mr Chair, just one thing on the request for clarification. The landfill on page 137, landfill operation, Merrill Castless, 264. Just explain those figures. Is that what it's actually costing us to do that, or overall?
No, that's overall. So that's the annual number that has cost us to operate that facility.
The Merrill Castless facility.
Correct. Yep, both of
So
those together.
that's correct, 264,823.
That's what's in the budget. Yes, correct.
That
That's the
needs to be
annual
known,
budget.
You know,
Yep, it's in the
Yeah.
budget.
yeah, well, now that's fine. It's not probably a figure that the
Yeah.
general public knows
Mm.
for any reason regarding fees.
Mm.
Okay, they're not getting $264,000 back out of the fees.
No. So yes, no.
Okay.
Take it on note there, councillor.
Thank you.
Just on the waste transfer station at Scone, have we started allowing small vehicles to use it as a weighbridge?
So was that a question? Have we
Yeah.
started using it?
Yeah.
I will have to take that on notice and come back to you.
Because that is a revenue stream.
Yes, councillor, we put that in the budget in our Depop as a revenue fee and charge anyway. So overall, apart from those items there's nothing else to highlight there. Our KPIs on 139 through to 142, all green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Our general purpose rates, grants and interest on 143. Here we've got a little bit in front of budget, and again, it's the pensioner concessions, so obviously that will fix itself up.
Mr. Chair, just back to that one, the page 137, the question that I asked.
Correct.
264, could that be fleshed out exactly how that figure has arrived?
Yes, councillor, we can take that on notice and provide that information, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Moving into our KPI side of things on our general purpose revenue, a green indicator there on 144, so nothing to highlight there. Council services on page 145, no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit in front of budget at the moment, just with some of our costs there coming through for our mayor and elected members' expenses. So apart from that, nothing else to highlight. And with regards to our KPI on 146, a green indicator there, so there's nothing to highlight there either. Moving into our health services area, no votes or surrenders coming through. This one here is affected by COVID coming through because it's more or less going out with inspections in the mix. So we're a little bit behind budget at the moment, and it's money generated by that revenue streams up the top there. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. And as you can see on page 48 to 49, the two red indicators highlight why that revenue is down with the inspection numbers. Moving on to page 150, emergency housing. Here you'll see, councillor, we've got the emergency housing there. So overall, we haven't got any votes or surrenders going through at the moment. And effectively, we haven't received a bill for the actual works that have been completed over there as yet. So that's why it's a little bit in front of budget at this point in time. But the works have been completed over there, which is quite good. So I think now the only thing is an agreement with the Upana homeless going through that process. So low income housing on page 151, no votes or surrenders and nearly spot on budget, so nothing to highlight there. And on page 152, we've got a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Public cemeteries, no votes or surrenders coming through, a little bit overspent at this point in time. Just our revenue streams are a little bit lower than we anticipated. So it hopefully will catch up as time goes through the year. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. KPI side of things on page 154 to 155. Here we've got a red indicator and a green indicator. The red indicator relates to the actual capital works being completed. We had some tree planting to be done, which hasn't fully been fleshed out yet, but we'll be doing that over the course of the next month or so. So it'll bring that back into alignment. Public conveniences on 156, no votes or surrenders coming through here, and a little bit underspent at the moment, mainly in regards to the Abbotsford toilets up there. So they're nearing completion. So obviously that'll correct itself over the course of the next month or so. KPI side of things on 157, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Street lighting on 158, no votes or surrenders coming through, a little bit underspent at the moment on our utility costs, which is quite good. So hopefully that will be a good trend moving forward into the next 9 months.
Mr. Chair, just on that, something that's been brought up quite a bit, the Venica Street lighting. the $40,000, has that been able to, is that something that, in other words, is the proposed lighting lumens over and facility, is it acceptable? Is it the one that meets the standard?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This was asked by yourself in the previous Infrastructure Services Committee meeting, and it was taken on notice earlier this week. So we'll be getting back to you with an answer for that.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving into our KPIs on 159, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Moving into town planning on 160 to 161. Here we've just got a bit of a vote and surrender going through. Just with our development applications and certificates coming through, we've just had a consultant helping us out with a plethora of development applications coming through, which is quite good. So there's a lot of activity out there in the market. So effectively, we just extra revenue, and we've just put it against the planning consultant costs coming through. Overall, we're nearly spot on budget coming into the mix. So
Just a question for that one, please, Mr. Chair. The Heritage Advisor, does that go out to tender every few years?
Through the chair, that's, yeah, every few years we do, but it's been some time since we've gone out to tender, so it's probably due for another request for tenders.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving into our KPI side of things, on page 62 through to 64, 3 green indicators there, so nothing to highlight there. Building control on page 165, no votes or surrenders coming through. We're well in front of budget here at the moment. So obviously revenues received from construction certificates has been extremely higher, and also our costs have been down for our building services, which is quite good as well. So we've got a double win there. So that department's going quite gangbusters at the moment. As they get smashed with those certificates that they have to punch through, they've got a red indicator just in regards to the processing time at the moment with construction certificates, but that will come back into check by year end, which is quite good on page 166. So apart from that, nothing else to highlight. Quarry operations on 168, no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit overspent at this point in time, just with our quarry operations. It's just been a little bit higher for our contractor costs, and our gravel revenue has been a little bit lower. But hopefully, once we resolve all our DA issues that we've got at the moment with that pit, we'll be in full production out of the pit itself and getting some good gravel. Moving into our KPIs on 169, green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. On page 170, we've got animal control, no votes or surrenders, and we're nearly spot on budget coming through for that one. And as you move into the KPIs on 171 to 72, got a green indicator and a red indicator. The red indicator is about how the animals being impounded and rehoused. So that'll come back into alignment by year end, though. We'll make sure that happens. Emergency services on page 173 and 174, no votes or surrenders coming through. And we're pretty well spot on budget coming into the mix. We're a little bit underspent at this point in time. But apart from that, nothing else to highlight. Moving into fire services and protection on 75 to 76, 176. No votes or surrenders. And again, we're nearly spot on budget coming through the mix. So nothing to highlight there. KPI side of things, we've got one green indicator there for the fire protection, so nothing to highlight there. LG regulation and enforcement on 178, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit underspending just in our nuisance and health area, but apart from that, pretty well spot on budget. And our KPI side of things, we've got one amber and one red one. So as highlighted, we think that the red indicator should be green. Because I think that measure was incorrect. So it should fix itself in next month's or next quarter's reporting. Community centres and halls on 181 to 182. Here we've got a small vote going through just in regards to the air conditioner, as Councillor Watts indicated. So we put the air conditioner in down there at the hall. apart from that, we're a little bit underspent overall year to date, which is mainly in regards to the Murundai War Memorial Gates. So obviously that project is finalising itself at this point in time. So we're just waiting on our final costs to come through. KPI side of things, on pages 183 to 184, the red indicator is effectively the COVID affected bookings of our centres and halls. So we'll see how that pans out for the rest of the year. Cultural services on 185, no votes or surrenders here, nearly spot on budget, so nothing to highlight there. And our KPI on 186 is a green indicator, so nothing to highlight there. Museums on 187, no votes or surrenders again, nearly spot on budget, nothing to highlight other than that. Other sport and rec on page 188. Here we've got a little bit of a vote coming through in regards to a bit of funding that the sporting officer has gained in regards to contributions from Godolphin in regards to some future sporting projects. So we've got a little bit of funding come through for that, and also a grant funding for Active Australia Innovative Challenge. So she's been proactive in gaining a bit of funding for events and future projects going forward. So it's quite a good win overall. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. 189 through to 191. Here we've got 3 green indicators, so nothing else to highlight from there. Parks and Gardens on 192 to 193. No votes or surrenders coming through the mix here. And overall, we're a little bit underspent at this point in time. And it's money in regards to our driver reviver. So obviously that project is continuing, nearing completion. So obviously those funds will be spent. So that's part of the underspend coming through. But also we've had a little bit less cost in regards to our maintenance and servicing of our parks and gardens at the moment. So obviously as spring kicks into play and a bit of the wet weather, obviously that will be chewed up rather quick coming through, keeping those maintained. KPI side of things on 194 to 95, 2 green indicators there, so nothing to highlight there. Public libraries on 196 to 97, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Overall, we're a little bit underspent at this point in time. And effectively, there's 3 main areas in the budget here. Our admin costs are a little bit lower than budget at this point by about $20,000, just with a vacancy in there for the technical services officer. So obviously, and also reduction in use of staff while the actual facilities have been locked down. So, so we've had a few savings there. General expenses is also a little bit underspent at this point in time. We've got a number of book purchases which we've actually gone through and procured. We're just waiting on the invoices to come in and be processed through the system. And the other one that we're looking at on the other side, where we're a little bit overspent at this point in time, is just with the library development. We've getting those new designs and everything there coming through. We'll be looking at the overall cost that we expect to have on that library coming through before we put a vote through. So obviously we'll look at what the actual design cost will be to the year end, and then we'll break that vote for you. Moving into our KPI side of things on pages 198 through to 200. We've got 2 green indicators and the red indicator. So obviously the red indicator, we haven't been able to organise consultations with the community about the collection material, obviously with COVID and so forth, is making it rather difficult. So hopefully once the libraries are open and going again at full steam, we'll be able to have those consultation meetings. Moving into sporting grounds and venues on pages 201 through to 202. No votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit overspent at this point in time. We've had a little bit extra cost in regards to just servicing our sporting grounds, and a bit more cost in regards to our utilities on our rates and property insurance. So we'll review that and just make sure that those costs are coming through correctly. And also the other one is we've had a little bit of an overspend in regards to the grandstand at Wilson Memorial Oval, but we're reviewing those costs as well coming through the mix. So hopefully that will bring that back into alignment in the overall project. Moving into our KPI side of things on 203 to 204, a red indicator in regards to our capital works area there. which looks like it's hasn't been completely filled in. So we'll actually look at that KPI and just get that amended accordingly. Swimming pools on page 205 through to 206. Here we've got no votes or surrenders going through at this point in time. Overall, we're underspent here by about $80,000, which effectively is our capital works that we had planned to do in regards to the fiberglassing and painting of the pools. We've got those funds will probably be redirected into some pump repairs and some dosing plants that needs to be acquired at this point. So we'll be diverting those funds probably at the next meeting into those different areas coming through the mix.
Mr. Chair, just on that, I heard on the radio coming across this morning that Mirror Pool won't be open until the 19th. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did have some issues with a pump there that were only discovered yesterday. And therefore, as soon as we discovered that, we spoke with the contractor that's fixing the pump and obtaining the parts.
Right.
And they explained to us that they will be able to open on Tuesday. We did indeed start comms on that and make sure that we communicated it to the community.
Yeah, because I knew nothing about it. And you stand there with a blank look on your face when they ask the local councillor. And I just think that it's a pretty hot topic out there at times.
I completely agree, and we alerted the community as soon as we knew, then we let everyone else know.
Okay, yeah, it just needs to be out there so that they know, and also the early time, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously safety is our first priority. So we want to make sure that everything's, up until that point, best laid plans and all that, we're on target to open. So we're disappointed that we haven't met that target, but the plan is to open safely on Tuesday.
Yeah, look, thank you. I agree with all that. And the fact too that the criticism then is leveled, well, why isn't it done earlier? Well, COVID stepped in, and that needs to be, I suggest to you that needs to be strongly stated, because it's affected all other industries too, and supplying parts.
Yeah, we do acknowledge that there's things that we can improve on, and we're working on that.
Great. Thank you.
Why wasn't the maintenance done during winter? And why was that maintenance that was going to be done not done?
The maintenance, through you, Mr. Chair, the maintenance has been done. This was actually an issue with a pump that was.
No. Wayne had mentioned that the maintenance of
The actual painting of the pool and so
why
forth.
wasn't that done this year?
There was no requirement to actually have it done according to the officers
For all pools,
for the pools themselves.
all the pools?
Yeah, so we're going to redivert
Interesting.
the funds to the dosing plants, which was a priority.
Yeah.
So those dosing plants need to be put into place, as well as the pumps. There's 3 pumps, I think, that will have to be replaced as well. So unfortunately, we didn't get to doing the actual painting on the pool.
That's what I'm asking.
yeah.
Are you saying it didn't need to be done, or are you
Didn't need
saying
to
we
be done.
didn't
need to be
get
done.
to it?
No, didn't
Didn't need to be done.
Correct.
So in regard to the pumps, they were checked when? Earlier in the season, or they've just been checked just before?
No, they were checked before the pools were open. Some were found
Just now, instead of
No,
like.
no, that is not the case. They were checked previously, well before the pools were open. When we were priming the pumps earlier this week, we found that there was a problem. We ordered the parts. There was a delay in the parts from Sydney. And then we had further issues when we opened up the pump.
This is Merrywall.
This is Merrywall, correct?
Yeah. So the other pools will open on time. And
They're
has
already open, the
and-
other pools.
And in relation to the crack in the Scone pool?
In relation to that, we had some remedial works done on it. We did find leaks when we were doing the
Yeah.
maintenance. So that's been done. However, obviously with the age of the pools and the quality of them, we can't guarantee against further leaks in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, councillor. So the only highlighted area in there is that after the resolution the council made in regards to the leasing of the pools, we're going to have a $60,000 hole in that budget coming forward. So we need to address that and bring that vote coming back into the system, probably the next meeting, I'd say. So moving into our KPI side of things on 207, no votes or surrenders, no issues with that, but a green light there because the pools weren't open by the end of September.
Sorry, just on the pools, have we got early numbers on activity there?
I can take that on notice and get you the information.
That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Okay, moving into White Park Complex, no votes or surrenders on 208. Here, as mentioned earlier in the overall summary, the main reason why we're underspent there is the capital works program. So we're looking at rescheduling those works into the back end of the financial year. The aerodrome on page 209 through to 210, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Overall, as you can see, that it's well and truly underspent at this point in time, and it's mainly due to the capital works program there, the capital spend. So it's mainly a timing issue with the September invoice coming into the mix. As highlighted earlier as well, we've got a bit of extra revenue on page 209 in regards to the capital grants received. So that's just the progressive claims that come through. But our user fees are down at this point in time, and we've got the annual access charges being invoiced at the moment, and they were budgeted to happen a little bit earlier than we're actually processing the invoices. Moving into our KPI side of things on 211 through to 213, a red indicator there and two green indicators. The red indicator there, the actual target was actually met, so that should be a green indicator because the actual number for September was about 500 coming through in movements, so that actually meets the target.
Just Wayne, how's the early bird tickets for the air show going? Have you got any idea?
I got a report earlier in the week. They're not really high. I think there's still some concerns with people not sure whether we're going to really open up and whether things are going to get back onto track by March. I think there's probably more certainty after this weekend when we start to see the 80% vaccination targets. I can probably circulate that. It'll probably take me 10 minutes to find the email. That's all. So I can circulate that to councillors later.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into bridges on 214 to 215. Here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through the mix. As you can see, we're a little bit underspent at this point in time. Mainly two areas. The bridge maintenance is a little bit underspent at this point, and also Cameron's Bridges is a little bit underspent, but that definitely will catch up over the course of the next few months with its construction continuing. Overall, with the KPI side of things on 216 to 217, a red indicator and a green indicator. The red indicator is the capital works side of things, which will turn into positive hidden target by year end. Moving into footpaths and cycleways on 218 to 219. Here you'll see the vote coming in to the mix for the grant funding, as well as the 400,000 for the footpath extension over at Merriwar. So we've brought that into play now. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit underspent at this point in time, or I beg your pardon, overspent at this point in time. So effectively what it relates to is the Mooby Cycleway, but we'll be bringing through a vote where we recover the contributions for the footpath coming into the mix, so that'll cover off the overspend. Moving into the KPIs on 220 to 221, a green indicator and a red indicator. So as mentioned earlier about the unsafe conditions of the footpath, so hopefully that will be rectified during the course of the year. RMS State Roads on 222, no votes or surrenders coming through here. And as you can see that we're underspent significantly in the individual price works orders, as mentioned earlier as highlighted in the overall summary. So apart from that, nothing else to highlight. As you can see, our spend on our routine maintenance and emergency works is continuing to chug along. Moving into the KPI side of things on 223 to 224, both green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Regional roads on 225 through to 226, no votes or surrenders coming through here. And as you can see, as we've struggled with our capital works program, we're well and truly underspent in this area, and it's mainly the capital works side of things. So effectively, as you can see there, a number of projects are a little bit behind budget coming into the mix. So apart from that, nothing else to highlight. KPI side of things on 227 through to 229, 229, got one red indicator, which is our capital works program. So that should hopefully come back into alignment by year end. Local roads on 230 to 232. Here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through the mix. And again, we're a little bit underspent. And again, it's a capital works area as highlighted earlier. So as we improve our capital works coming into the mix, we'll improve our bottom line. Apart from that, everything else is chugging along quite well. Our maintenance overall is chugging along and continuing. So hopefully that will hit the mark for the community as we put extra dollars into that maintenance program. Moving into our KPIs on 233 through to 237. Here we've got 2 red indicators and 3 green indicators. The red indicators predominantly is around the capital works program again. And also our inspections of our local network. So obviously we'll address those and bring those back into meet target by year end. Transport auxiliaries on pages 238 to 239. Here we've got a small vote going through just with a bit of section 94 contribution that we received. So we just put that back into the RA. Apart from that, nothing much there in our vote area. Overall, we're a little bit underspent. And again, it's mainly in regards to 133 Kelly Street, which effectively is chugging along quite well. And I think the completion date of that is around March, April of the 2022 year. So hopefully it'll be up and ready for Horse Festival when it hits town in May. So that will be good to see. Moving into our KPIs on pages 240 to 241, we've got some red indicators there. So again, about capital works program coming through. Moving into our water supply on pages for Merriwar on 242 to 243. No votes or surrenders coming through here. Nearly spot on budget overall. The user fees are the things that are pretty well making it lower than budget. So as highlighted, the consumption being a little bit lower in that first billing cycle. The Marundi water, again, no votes or surrenders coming through. And again, it's a little bit behind budget. And again, it's mainly in regards to our usage fees coming into the mix overall. We've just got a couple of the KPIs are just out of alignment with the Scone water area. So the KPIs, we've got three red indicators for our KPIs. So effectively, it's mainly in regards to a lot of the capital works program coming through and our quality of our water. So as highlighted earlier when we went through the red KPIs, a couple of those will come back into alignment. Whether the water quality does, it's debatable. Moving into our the actual Scone water supplies, so just the back end of the water supply, no votes or surrenders. Here we're a little bit in front of budget, even though we've got lower water consumption. Our capital program is a little bit behind budget at the moment by about 150K. Obviously, as highlighted in our overall summary, just a couple of those projects, we're just waiting on some invoicing to come in overall. And also then once the tenders go through and production starts with the contractors, we'll be hitting the marks with our capital spend. Moving into Merriwar Sewage on 252 to 253. Here we've just got a little vote going through, just a bit of extra cost in regards to our sewer treatment activities. So the wages to do those works. Obviously, with a bit of our testing regimes, we've increased that up. So we've had a bit of extra cost overall. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit in front of budget, and it's mainly the capital works area there, so about 33K. So again, it will catch itself up as those tenders start to gain momentum and be completed. Marundi Sewage on page 254 to 255, no votes or surrenders here again, and overall we're a little bit underspent, which is mainly to do with the pensioner concessions coming through, but apart from that, it's pretty negligible. Moving into Scone Sewage on 256 through to 257, no votes or surrenders again. Here we're a little bit in front of budget. And overall, our sewer treatment activities have been a little bit lower than we expected with our expenditure. And also the capital works expenditure is a little bit behind budget at the moment, which again, as I said earlier, it'll pick itself up with those contracted works that they get contracted out in tender. So they will right themselves over the course of the next 9 months. Moving into our KPIs through to 258 through to 261, 2 red indicators, a green one and an amber one. The red indicators, again, are in regards to the capital works side of things. So obviously they will correct themselves as the works are completed over the course of the next 9 months.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Have yourself a well-earned drink. Okay, councillors, back to page 37. There's 4 points of the recommendation. Got a mover. Move Councillor Burns, second Councillor Campbell. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 262, contractors and expense report. Who's speaking to that one?
Yes, Mayor, I can speak to that one as well. Just in regards to the contract, there's been nil contracts over the 50,000 with the consultants and legal costs. As you can see there, we've highlighted the main areas of those spends coming into the mix. As you can see there, the planning consultants ones have increased, so we've increased the original budget from 20 to 40,000. So apart from that, they're there for your information.
Any questions? 2 points of recommendation. Got a mover. Move Councillor Watts, second Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 267, Scone Airport project update. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we go through the tables on pages 267 to 268, I'll summarise those. Since last meeting, the rectification works has been agreed upon by all of the consulting and reviewing engineers, and work has been underway. It's been underway now for about 3 weeks. If you were out there yesterday, there are 11 elevated working platforms within the hangar building itself. Some of those have 2 men in them. So overall, there was more than 12 men. They were all 12 workers, Boilermakers up there. And there's also a paint crew has started work, sandblasting and doing priming and preparation for the painting as well. They're following the Boilermakers behind. So they're throwing as much resources as they physically can in that area in a safe manner. If they were to put anything else in there, you'd start to become, get in each other's way and have potential safety issues. So they're accelerating as fast as they can, and they expect to be completed, the rectification works, by about the 1st of November. And then they'll start cladding at that stage. So they'll be back to where they were at the end of August on the cladding. Work on the terminal structure is going ahead well. So with the delay on the hangar is the critical path, not the terminal. It's flipped over. And work on the terminal is progressing quite well there as well. The overall, Kingston plan to be completed their works by the 1st of February, and then Freeman Ryan Design then to schedule to come in and do the fit out of the Hunter Warbirds starting on the 7th of February, and they'll be finished within 2 weeks, their plan. So overall, we should have the whole facility completed by before the end of February.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, is there an opportunity for fit out to begin before Kingston is finished? Is there a task coordination plan to be able to do that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we've looked at that, and no, there's not, because they have to wait. One of the last things that Kingston do is the flooring. and then they have to wait for that flooring to cure. And then when that's cured, Freeman Ryan will come in.
Lovely. Thank you.
And if that delay is pushed out any further due to anything else, are we then in critical?
Sorry, what was the last part of that question?
Are we then critical to meet our deadline?
Through the chair, they're working as, we'll have to respond and to see what delay that would be as to whether or not it could be caught up, within time. At the moment, they're working Saturdays, every Saturday, and most Sundays as well. And they're working 12-hour days. So they're doing their best to speed it as much as they could.
Yeah.
Totally agree that they're doing their job, yeah, but it's still got to, we don't want to be pushed back any further.
FRD, who are the contractors that need to come in afterwards for the fit out, whilst their period of time to actually do the work is quite short, the periods in which they have available times to come back are quite staggered. So if you miss a window, you may be then twiddling your thumbs for some time before they can come back. So that's the critical part, and that's the piece that Chris is trying to ensure that all the construction work is done so that FRD aren't delayed a second time.
Chris, just on the engineering of the failed departments, how many engineers, just like you've told me, but there was more than just one engineer company, wasn't there, to redesign this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The original company that I'll go back. We engaged Kingston to do a design and construction contract, and then they subcontracted to another company called XXL Sheds to do the hangar part. Now, the hangar and the terminal, they're two separate buildings, two separate designs. So the hangar was designed by XXL Sheds, so because that's what they do. Now, when we had the problems, Kingston instructed XXL Sheds for their designer to review the design and to also employ someone external to their company to review their design. And on top of that, Kingston, to protect their interests as well as ours, but commercially protect their interests, they employed Northrop Engineering to review those other engineers and the outcomes. Now, as with the development of the rectification works, the first two, XXL on their reviewer came up with rectification plan, but then Northrop even reviewed it and reviewed they reviewed the whole model of the whole structure, not just the works to be done. They then discussed it with them and made them realise they needed to do even more. So there was, that three levels of design review, two of which were independent to the first person who did the review. So there's not much more you can do apart from that. The very thorough, and the Northrop, who were employed by Kingston to do the external third-party review, they're very well regarded national design structural company. So yeah, they threw all the resources at it that you could want.
Thanks, Chris.
So moving through the table, on budget, we're about 70% completion of the Warbirds structure. We've finalised now the design of the electrics, the IT, the security, the kitchen, the cafe fit outs, tiles, flooring. So all that has been put through into our projected spend, and the contingency balance now has dropped down to about 208,000. But there's not very many other things that contingency, that's going to jump out at us. And I'll just add that since this report's been added, we've got the tenders have come in for the fencing, and it was substantially lower.
Yeah, we won't talk about details here though.
Sorry. So anyway, we've got a handle on that cost. now. So that's really the end of that table there. So the work that's been done during the last month on the bottom of page 268 is, as I said, the remedial works to the hangar has been going. The terminal, they've finished the roofing, the glazing, the doors, all the services have been roughed in. So the electrics, the IT, the security, the air conditioning, all the air conditioning ducting and components are up in the roof. The hanger to the apron slab's been poured. The fire services pipe has been installed. It's in the ground. That's the fire services for the precinct fire supply. Next period, we expect to finish the external cladding of the hangar, finish the remedial works on the hangar and finish the external cladding on the terminal building and the internal lining as well. That'll start next week. And then finish off the fire sprinkler system to the hangar. They've started work on that. And then the fire tanks will arrive shortly and be installed. With the pump house construction as well on the top of page 269 and the construction of the rainwater tank slab. So there's a lot of activity out there now. It's a very, very highly active site. And the Airside Civil Works, we've got all of that work scheduled to be done in November. Yes, the external, overland drainage and the asphalt engine rev up bay on the helipad, and some defect rectifications to the airside drainage that was installed earlier this year. There's just some minor areas where there's some scouring going on that we've got to put some scour rock in. They're only small, but there's a number of them. And some areas where water is lying on the ground, it's not making its way to the drain, and we've just got to either, one area we have to drop the drain, another area we've got to bring some fill in to run the water off. So, yeah, so they'll be all done in November. Budget, if we go down to page 273, year to date actual, there is 982,000. As Mr. Phelps said, there's an invoice for September hasn't come in, so when that does, that'll jump up. And because of the delay, I guess the delay in progress on the hangar, you know, that's fallen behind time-wise, but yeah, it'll all be finished, you know, within the next 4 months. So it'll all come in within this year. Are there any questions?
No questions? Okay, the council received the report and note the information. Got a mover? Councillor Burns, second Councillor Campbell. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 275, response to previous questions. Councillor Fisher, happy with? Apparently he is. Okay, councillors, any other councillor questions? Councillor Burns?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I think it's this one because the first part will be finance. So can council build dams?
Are you asking if we have the technical skill, or are you asking if we've got a place to do it and the permissions to do it?
Are we allowed to do it?
With approvals, they can be built, yes.
Because the state and the feds aren't doing anything, so we probably need to.
Right. If you're talking about a large dam of a water supply resource type nature, that's probably out of our wheelhouse, but we could project manage it.
I think we need to have a very serious discussion about it. We're a water authority, yet we don't own the water. So.
Okay, any further questions? I'm just going to make a comment, and I'll probably be unpopular. I think we're not going through the chair enough. We're having too much discussion without coming through the chair. And the other one, I have got issues with the use of mobile phones in meetings. I look around today, we're all We all have done it. I mean, the general manager does it, but he's the general manager. So I suppose I got no problem with having your phones on silent, just look at a message, but if it doesn't need to be answered or just surely for 2 hours, we can all last. We are on open air, we are going out to the public. So that's just my comment. It's not a rule, it's just my comment. Okay, no further. I'll declare the meeting closed at 10:25.